the favorite child in the family? It's a difficult question that I've deliberated upon for quite some time, and I've come to two solid answers. The wrong half of the world will say the oldest child. The right half of the world will say the youngest. Spoiler alert, it's never the middle child. Now me, I'm a part of the right half of the world. I'm 14 years old and I'm a freshman. And like many 14-year-olds, I watch quite a bit of TV. But it's taught me a few things. And the shows I seem to have learned the most from are reboots. Now what is a reboot, you ask? A reboot is typically a continuation of a beloved movie or TV show, but with a whole new plot. So that means a new cast, a new set, but still tied to the original, somehow paying homage. These reboots have the unique job of following in the footsteps of their predecessors while still making their own name. And that's where my life comes in. I'm the youngest in my family with twin older sisters who are 8 years older than me. And here I am in my first year of high school, going to the same high school they did 8 years later. So in a way, I'm kind of like a reboot. And not always in the best way. See, when I got to middle school, nobody there knew me or my sisters. I had a clean slate. I got to sort of make my own name. So when I finally got to high school, I felt the slightest little shift. People started to recognize the last name. They knew who my sisters were, the great things that they had done. And even if it was subconscious, it was possible that they expected those same things from me, which was terrifying. I had a class early in the year designed for freshmen to get accustomed to life in high school. Now, none of us knew the teacher all too well, so we played your typical icebreaker game. Name, age, fun fact. Each of my friends stood up and gave their own little introductory paragraph, sat back down. So when I got up, I decided to mention my sisters in my fun fact. Immediately. "Oh my gosh," the teacher said, "your sisters were pillars of our community. They were great people." He even jokingly said, "Those must be some big shoes to fill." Now that comment would stick with me for quite some time. In life in general, but in high school especially, you have a reputation. It may not be what you want it to be, and it may not always be true, but there is some way that people know you. My sisters, in my eyes, in the eyes of my school, were great people. They were intelligent and kind, high achievers. And as I got to high school, I told myself I didn't want that reputation to live up to. But what I didn't know is I did want it. I liked the safety of it, the feeling of not being so unknown in places where other people were. Because maybe my friends had to get up and introduce themselves to the new teacher, but maybe I could just tell them my sisters' names, and from there have already established a connection. I liked the comfort of it, but not forever, because that's when identity came into play. See, your reputation, that's the way that people view you. But identity, that's the way that you view yourself. I lived in the comfort and safety of my sister's reputation for a little while, till I realized I didn't want it. I wanted to be known as me. I still wanted to be known as intelligent and kind, the same way they were, but I wanted it to be my identity, not their reputation. No matter how open-minded we like to think we are, preconceived notions are a very real thing. It's human instinct to want to fill in the blank, assume what you don't know, create an idea of someone in your head so you know how to interact with them. Unfortunately, these ideas more often reflect reputation rather than true identity. So while it's great to have my teachers think I'm super smart and super athletic, it's also terrifying. Because how can I define who I am when I can't even control what other people think of me? A big question, I know. And when looking for the answer, I was once again brought back to my couch and various streaming services. No showrunner, producer, or director can control the narrative the public will have about their TV show. They don't know if people will like it or even be able to predict how well it will do. Some of the most anticipated reboots of all time have flopped. And it taught me something. I realized that the only real thing I can control are the differences between me and my sisters. Because maybe they were pretty athletic, and I'm not particularly skilled at sports. And maybe I'm into theater, and they've never stepped foot on stage. The subtle differences are what make us who we were. And it's no different with a reboot. The storylines between an original and a reboot aren't just copy-pasted. Of course you can draw parallels between the themes and characters, but at the end of the day, the differences are what make the reboot enjoyable. Being able to be connected and different at the same time. And even if I have written this talk, I've gotten to have a lot of reflection. Reflection on my pressure I've been feeling, on the time I've had in high school. I hold my sisters in such high regards that I believe the rest of the world held them that way. In reality, only like 4 people knew who they were. I mean, a couple teachers had heard their name, but very few knew them personally. All that pressure I had felt, I'd built it all up in my head. And I realized something. Those 8 years between where I am now and where my sisters are is something I've deemed the great unknown. Picture it like this. We're both standing on the edges of a cliff, and between us are a big void. Those are the 8 years between freshman year and where my sisters are. They've built their bridge. They had their own challenges, their own crossroads, their own life-changing decisions, and they crossed it. They made it to the other side. And me, I'm confident I'll do the same. But I don't know if it'll be the same challenges or the same decisions. I don't even know if I'll end up in the same place. Not unlike a reboot. The original, it's run its course. And people liked it, hence the reason for a reboot. But they know how it ends. And for a reboot, the same way you have to actually watch it to know what's going to happen, I actually have to live my life to know what's going to happen. But in the end, the beauty of the great unknown is just that. It's unknown. Nothing is set in stone. I spent so much of my first year in high school so worried about what other people were thinking about me and my sisters that when I realized that no one really cared, it was incredibly freeing. So I urge people to stop dwelling on what other people believe. And maybe if you live your life with a truly open mind and without caring what other people think, who knows? Someday, they might make a reboot out of you.